The Velthari Dominion had ruled the stars for 12,000 cycles. They built their empire on one simple truth. Everything could be measured. Every species, every world, every war could be reduced to numbers. Their analysts calculated outcomes before battles even began. They knew who would win, who would lose, and how long it would take. This precision made them powerful beyond measure. When the patrol fleet intercepted the human vessel near the Kessler Nebula, senior analyst Juran treated it as routine work. The ship was called the Horizon's Edge. It was a small exploration vessel, not a warship. The humans aboard numbered 37. They had surrendered after a brief chase through the asteroid field. Their engines damaged and their weapons systems offline. Juran watched from the observation deck as the prisoners were brought aboard. Humans were a young species, barely 1,000 years into space travel. The Velthari had encountered hundreds of species like them. They all followed the same patterns. They resisted at first, then they broke, then they served. The mathematics never failed. The processing took 3 standard days. Each human was scanned, measured, and cataloged. Bone density, muscle composition, neural activity, metabolic rates, psychological profiles. The data flowed into Juran's analysis systems and produced neat predictions. Average intelligence for a spacefaring species. Moderate physical capability. Short lifespans that made them poor candidates for long-term labor but acceptable for high-turnover operations. One human caught his attention during the assessment process. Her name was Katie Brennan. She held the rank of lieutenant commander and served as the second officer aboard the Horizon's Edge. She was 34 Earth years old. Female, medium height by human standards. Brown hair cut short. Brown eyes that watched everything without revealing anything. The scanners found nothing remarkable about her. Her physical metrics fell within normal ranges for human females. She had sustained injuries during the capture, including 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and internal bleeding. The medical units had repaired the worst damage, but left her in weakened condition. Juran calculated her threat assessment at 2.3 on the Standard Resistance Index. This number meant she posed minimal risk of causing problems. She would follow orders, work until exhaustion, and eventually expire like all the others. He assigned her to labor camp VEF-7 without a second thought. VEF-7 was not a place where prisoners thrived. It sat on a barren moon orbiting a gas giant at the edge of Velthari territory. The gravity pulled at bodies with 1.7 times the force of Earth. The atmosphere contained toxins that slowly poisoned any species not adapted to them. Temperatures swung between burning heat during the day and bitter cold at night. The work involved mining rare minerals from deep underground tunnels. The expected survival rate for humans at VEF-7 was 42 standard days. Most did not last that long. Commander Nathan Cole was the ranking human officer among the prisoners. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and the steady voice of someone used to command. When he learned of Katie's assignment, he requested an audience with the camp warden. The warden's name was Korath. He stood 8 feet tall with gray-green skin and 4 arms that ended in clawed fingers. His eyes were black and reflected light like polished stones. He had overseen VEF-7 for 60 cycles and had never lost control of his prisoners. Nathan stood before him in the cold metal chamber that served as the warden's office. He kept his voice calm and respectful, the way a professional officer addresses an enemy he cannot defeat. Lieutenant Commander Brennan is still recovering from her injuries, Nathan said. The medical scans show her ribs have not fully healed. Her respiratory system is compromised. Assigning her to heavy labor in a toxic atmosphere will kill her within days. Korath made a clicking sound with his mandibles. Among his kind, this indicated amusement. Your concern is noted, Commander. It is also irrelevant. She is a valuable officer. skilled in engineering and navigation. She would be more useful in a technical capacity. Our calculations indicate otherwise. Kareth gestured toward a display screen showing Katie's assessment data. Her metrics suggest no exceptional abilities. Her survival probability at Veth 7 is low but acceptable for our purposes. We do not require her to survive. We require her to work. Nathan's jaw tightened. Your calculations may be wrong. They are never wrong. Kareth leaned forward, his black eyes fixed on the human. Your species believes in many things we find primitive. Hope, courage, the idea that determination can overcome physical reality. These are pleasant fantasies. They do not change mathematics. Lieutenant Commander Brennan will be transferred to Veth 7 tomorrow. She will work in the mines. She will die when her body fails. This is not cruelty, Commander. This is simply what the numbers say will happen. Nathan was escorted back to the holding cells. He passed Katie in the corridor as guards moved her toward the transfer shuttle. Their eyes met for a brief moment. He wanted to say something, offer some words of encouragement or hope. But the guards pushed him forward before he could speak. Katie watched him go. Her face showed no fear, no anger, no desperation. She simply observed, the way she had observed everything since their capture. She noted the guard positions, the security protocols, the layout of the corridors. She memorized the warden's face when she passed his office. The shuttle ride to Veth 7 took 6 hours. Katie sat in silence among 11 other prisoners assigned to the same fate. Some of them wept. Others stared at nothing, already accepting what was to come. A young man named Derek Vasquez sat beside her. He was 26 years old, a junior engineer who had been on his first deep space assignment when the Velthari captured them. I heard the survival rate, Derek said quietly. 42 days average. Most don't make it past 30. Katie looked at him. Her brown eyes were calm and steady. Then we will have to change the average. Derek almost laughed. It sounded absurd. Changing the average meant fighting against gravity, poison, cold, heat, and exhaustion. It meant defying the calculations of a species that had conquered 1,000 worlds through mathematical precision. But something in her voice made him believe, just for a moment, that she meant it. The shuttle descended through toxic clouds toward the gray surface of the moon. Below them, the lights of Veth 7 glowed like dying embers. Somewhere in his observation post, Jern logged Katie Brennan's arrival and updated his survival projections. 20-8 days. That was his estimate for her. 28 days before her body would fail completely. He had never been wrong before. He did not expect to be wrong now. The first morning on Veth 7 began with a siren that cut through the thin air like a blade. Katie opened her eyes in the gray darkness of the barracks. Her body ached in ways she had never experienced before. The gravity pressed down on her chest, making each breath a small battle. Her ribs throbbed with pain that the Velthari medical units had only partially healed. Around her, the other prisoners stirred on their thin sleeping mats. The barracks held 20 humans in a space designed for half that number. The walls were bare metal that conducted cold at night and heat during the day. A single light fixture provided dim illumination that never quite reached the corners. Katie sat up slowly. Every movement cost her something. Standing cost her more. But she stood anyway, because the alternative was to stay down, and staying down meant dying. The work detail assembled in the yard, outside the barracks. Guards with shock sticks herded the prisoners into lines. A Velthari overseer read out the day's assignments in a flat, mechanical voice. Mining Tunnel 7. 12-hour shift. No breaks, except for the 30-minute meal period at midday. Katie marched with the others into the tunnels. The darkness swallowed them almost immediately. Small lights attached to their work suits provided just enough visibility to see the rock face in front of them. The tools were heavy, designed for stronger species. The humans had to adapt or fail. She adapted. The first week was the hardest. Her body screamed for rest it would not receive. The toxic atmosphere burned her lungs with every breath, despite the thin filter mask she wore. The gravity made her feel like she was carrying another person on her back at all times. At night, she collapsed onto her mat and slept like the dead until the siren woke her again. By day 15, the Valkyrie expected her to show signs of terminal decline. Their models were clear about this. A human female of her size and condition, performing heavy labor in these conditions, should begin experiencing organ failure around day 12. By day 15, she should be barely functional. Juran checked her data every morning. He monitored her biological readings through the sensors embedded in her work suit. Heart rate, blood oxygen, body temperature, cortisol levels. The numbers told a story that should have ended in death. Instead, they told a story he could not understand. Her body was damaged. This was undeniable. The toxins were accumulating in her system. Her muscles were breaking down faster than they could rebuild. Her cardiovascular system was under constant strain. And yet she kept working. Juran ran her data through 17 different predictive algorithms. Each one returned the same result. Katie Brennan should be dead or dying. She was neither. She was hauling ore through the tunnels at the same pace as humans, twice her size. He submitted a query to the central database, asking if any similar anomalies had been recorded with human subjects. The response came back negative. Humans typically followed predictable patterns. They broke when the mathematics said they would break. Katie Brennan was not following the pattern. The other prisoners noticed. At first, they watched her with the kind of pity reserved for someone too stubborn to accept reality. They had seen others like her, prisoners who fought against the inevitable until the inevitable won. It always won. The smart move was to conserve energy, accept the situation, and hope for a quick end. But Katie did not seem to understand this. She worked her full shifts. She ate her small rations. She slept her few hours. And then she did it again, day after day. While the mathematics said she should be dead. By the end of the second week, the pity had transformed into something else. The other prisoners began watching her not with sadness but with a strange kind of hope. If she could survive, maybe they could too. On day 23, everything changed. They were deep in Tunnel 7 when Derek Vasquez collapsed. One moment he was swinging his mining tool at the rock face. The next moment he was on the ground, his body shaking, his breath coming in short gasps. The guards responded immediately. One of them scanned Derek with a handheld device and made a clicking sound of dismissal. Metabolic failure. Non-recoverable within acceptable parameters. The other guard gestured toward the tunnel exit. Continue work. Leave him. The other prisoners hesitated. They looked at Derek, then at the guards, then at each other. The rules were clear. Stopping to help a fallen worker meant punishment. Carrying a fallen worker meant wasting energy that could be spent on productive labor. The mathematics of survival demanded they walk away. Katie walked toward Derek instead. Return to work, the guard ordered. She knelt beside him. His eyes were open but unfocused. His skin was pale and covered in sweat. She checked his pulse and found it weak but present. He was alive. He could still be saved if someone got him to the medical unit. I said return to work. The guard raised his shock stick. Katie looked up at him. Her brown eyes were steady and calm, the same way they had been since the day of her capture. She did not speak. She did not argue. She simply lifted Derek across her shoulders and stood up. The guard pressed the shock stick against her back. Pain exploded through her body, the kind of pain designed to drop any species to the ground. Her muscles spasmed. Her vision went white at the edges. She took a step forward. the guard shocked her again and again. Each time she stumbled but did not fall. Each time she took another step toward the tunnel exit. The other prisoners watched in silence. They had never seen anyone resist the shock sticks before. The pain was supposed to be overwhelming, impossible to fight through. Yet Katie Brennan was fighting through it, step by step, carrying a man who outweighed her by 60 pounds. She walked 3 kilometers through the tunnels. Her legs trembled with every step. Blood seeped from her cracked lips where she had bitten them to keep from screaming. Her broken ribs shifted inside her chest, sending bolts of agony through her body. She did not stop. When she finally reached the medical unit, she set Derek down on the treatment table and looked at the Velthering medic with those steady brown eyes. "Fix him," she said. Her voice was hoarse and broken, but the words were clear. The medic hesitated. Prisoners did not give orders. Prisoners did not walk through shock stick attacks. Prisoners did not carry dying comrades 3 kilometers through tunnels that should have killed them both. He fixed Derek anyway. Something about those eyes made it impossible to refuse. Kareth watched the security footage that night. He watched Katie walk through pain that should have paralyzed her. He watched her carry weight that should have crushed her. He watched her refuse to break when breaking was the only logical outcome. "Recalculate," he ordered Jaren. Jaren did. The numbers still said she should be dead. "Then your numbers are wrong," Kareth said slowly. It was the first time in his long career that Jaren had heard those words spoken by a Veltheri commander. It would not be the last. The Veltheri had built their civilization on mathematics. Every decision, every conquest, every moment of their 12,000 cycle empire rested on the foundation of precise calculation. They measured everything because everything could be measured. This was not belief. This was fact, proven across countless worlds and countless species. But their academies also taught about something called the unmeasured variable. It was a theoretical concept, a mathematical ghost that existed only in old texts and philosophical debates. The idea was simple. What if something existed that could not be quantified? What if some factor influenced outcomes without showing up in the data? The concept was considered primitive thinking. No one had encountered an unmeasured variable in over 6,000 cycles. Most analysts believed the concept was simply a placeholder for incomplete data collection. With enough sensors and enough processing power, everything could eventually be measured. Jaren had believed this his entire career. Now he sat in his observation post, staring at Katie Brennan's biological data, and wondered if he had been wrong. He began studying her obsessively. Every moment of her day was recorded and analyzed. He monitored her sleep patterns and found she slept less than the other humans, but woke more refreshed. He tracked her social interactions and noted that she spoke rarely, but listened constantly. He measured her food consumption and discovered something that should have accelerated her decline. She was giving away portions of her rations. The observation drone captured it clearly. At mealtimes, Katie would take her small portion of nutrient paste and divide it further. A spoonful to Derek Vasquez, who was still recovering from his collapse. A portion to an older man named Greg Palmer, whose hands shook too badly to hold his mining tools properly. A share to a young woman named Megan Torres, who had arrived at the camp pregnant and was now eating for 2 by every calculation. This behavior was suicidal. Katie was already operating at a caloric deficit. Giving away food should have pushed her body past the point of recovery. She should have weakened faster than anyone else in the camp. Instead, something unexpected happened. The other humans began giving portions back to her, not because she asked. She never asked for anything, not because of any formal exchange or agreement. They simply did it, quietly, instinctively. A spoonful here, a portion there. The food moved through the group like water flowing through channels that Jaren could not see. The mathematics made no sense. The total amount of food remained the same. No additional calories entered the system. Yet somehow, the humans were functioning better as a group than they should have been functioning as individuals. Juran created new models to explain the phenomenon. He hypothesized that the social bonding created psychological benefits that manifested as physical resilience. This was partially supported by the data. Stress hormones decreased when humans interacted positively with each other. Immune function improved slightly in the presence of trusted companions, but the numbers still did not add up. The psychological benefits he could measure were nowhere near enough to explain what he was observing. Commander Nathan Cole, still confined in the officer holding block on the main station, managed to send a message to the labor camp. The Valkyrie communication systems were supposedly secure, but humans had a talent for finding weaknesses in secure systems. The message passed through 3 different prisoners before reaching Katie. It contained 3 words. Hold the line. Katie read the message and passed it to Derek. Derek passed it to Megan. Megan passed it to Greg. Within 1 day, every human prisoner in the barracks had received those 3 words. That night, something shifted in the camp. Juran noticed it immediately in the data streams. Productivity among the human prisoners increased by 4.2%. Their metabolic efficiency improved by a measurable margin. Body temperatures rose slightly across the entire group, suggesting elevated morale or determination. He searched his databases for similar patterns. He found records of other species showing temporary increases in performance under stress. But those increases always came with corresponding decreases in longevity. The body burned hotter for a brief period and then burned out. The humans were not burning out. They were burning steady. Juran compiled his observations into a preliminary report and submitted it to Warden Korath. He used careful language, the kind that acknowledged uncertainty without admitting confusion. But Korath had commanded Veth 7 for 60 cycles. He knew how to read between the lines. "You are telling me she's rallying them," Korath said. "I am telling you that her presence correlates with measurable improvements in group performance," Juran replied. "I do not fully understand the mechanism." Korath studied the footage of Katie Brennan. She was hauling ore through the tunnels, her face expressionless, her movements steady despite the damage her body had sustained. There was nothing remarkable about her appearance, nothing that suggested special ability or unusual strength, and yet the other humans watched her constantly. They moved when she moved. They worked harder when she was nearby. They seemed to draw something from her presence that Juran's sensors could not detect. "She has become a symbol," Korath said slowly. "The one who refused to die." "Symbols can be broken," Juran suggested. Korath considered this. He had broken symbols before. He had taken the strongest prisoners from a dozen species and destroyed them publicly, showing the others what resistance earned them. It was a logical strategy, supported by centuries of data. Destroy the symbol, and you destroy the hope. Arrange a public punishment, he ordered. Extended labor. Reduced rations. Maximum visibility. We will show them what happens to those who defy the calculations. Juran hesitated. "Sir, I should note that my models show significant uncertainty regarding her response to such treatment. She has already defied multiple predictions. It is possible that public punishment could backfire." "How could it backfire?" "If she survives what should kill her, in full view of the other prisoners, it could strengthen their belief in her rather than weaken it." Korath made the clicking sound that indicated amusement. "Then we will simply make certain she does not survive." He dismissed Juran with a wave of his upper hands. But later that night, alone in his quarters, Korath pulled up Katie Brennan's file and studied it again. He looked at her steady brown eyes in the identification photograph. He read her average metrics and her unremarkable, Assessment scores dot, and for the first time in 60 cycles of running VETH-7, Warden Korath felt something that his training had never prepared him for. He felt doubt. They came for her on day 40-1. Katie was finishing her morning rations when 4 guards entered the barracks. They did not announce themselves or explain their purpose. They simply walked to her sleeping mat, pulled her to her feet, and marched her out into the yard. The other prisoners watched in silence. Derek Vasquez moved toward the door, but Megan Torres grabbed his arm and held him back. They all knew what was happening. They had seen it before with other prisoners on other days. Public punishment. The Valkyrie way of breaking those who refused to bend. The central yard was a flat expanse of gray stone surrounded by the camp's main buildings. Every prisoner in VETH-7 could see it from their workstations. This was by design. Korath wanted witnesses. He wanted everyone to watch what happened to humans who defied the calculations. Katie stood alone in the center of the yard. The morning sun beat down through the thin atmosphere, already raising the temperature toward unbearable. She could feel the gravity pressing on her bones, the familiar weight that never let her forget where she was. Her ribs ached with each breath. Her body carried the accumulated damage of 41 days in this place. Korath emerged from the administration building and walked toward her. His forearms were clasped behind his back. His black eyes reflected the sunlight like polished glass. "Lieutenant Commander Brennan," he said, "you have become a problem." Katie did not respond. She simply looked at him with those steady brown eyes that had watched everything since her capture. "My analysts tell me you should be dead. Multiple times over, by multiple causes. Yet here you stand." Korath tilted his head, studying her like a scientist studying an unusual specimen. "I find this curious. Not impressive. Merely curious." He gestured toward the processing plant on the eastern edge of the camp. "You will work there today. 18-hour shift. The machinery requires constant maintenance. It is designed for Valkyrie physiology. You will find it uncomfortable." Katie nodded once. She walked toward the processing plant without waiting for the guards to escort her. The first day was exactly as Korath had promised. The processing plant converted raw ore into refined minerals through a series of complex machines. Each machine required adjustments that forced Katie to stretch her body in ways it was not built for. She had to reach controls placed too high, operate mechanisms designed for 4 arms, and maintain equipment in temperatures that left burns on her exposed skin. 18 hours. No breaks except a 10-minute meal period at midday. By the end of the shift, her hands were raw and bleeding. Her muscles had cramped so many times she had lost count. Her vision blurred from exhaustion and dehydration. She did not stop working until the shift ended. The second day, Korath cut her water ration in half. The atmosphere on VETH-7 was dry enough to pull moisture from any living thing. Within hours, Katie's lips cracked and bled. Her throat felt like it was lined with sand. Medical sensors showed her kidneys beginning to strain as her body fought to conserve every drop of fluid. She worked her full 18 hours anyway. When she returned to the barracks that night, the other prisoners tried to share their water with her. She refused. If they gave her their water, they would weaken. If they weakened, they would die. She would not let them die for her. Derek argued with her. Greg pleaded with her. Megan simply held out her water container and said nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. She was too dehydrated to actually produce. Katie drank a single sip and pushed the container back. "Save it," she said. "You need it more than I do." The third day, Korath designed something special. He ordered her to carry ore by hand from the deep mines to the surface. The distance was 4 kilometers. The grade was steep enough that every step upward felt like climbing a mountain. The ore containers weighed 30 kilograms each. designed to challenge even healthy Valkyrie workers. Katie was not healthy. She was dehydrated, exhausted, and operating on less than half the calories her body needed. Her ribs had shifted again during the processing plant work, sending constant waves of pain through her chest. She made the first trip in 2 hours. Then she walked back down and made another trip. And another. And another. The other prisoners were ordered to watch. They stood in lines along the path from the mines to the surface depot, forced to witness what was happening. The guards wanted them to see Katie break. They wanted them to understand that resistance was pointless, that even the strongest symbol could be shattered. Katie made 11 trips before her legs gave out. She was 300 meters from the surface depot when her knees buckled and she fell. The ore containers spilled across the ground, scattering refined minerals across the rocky path. She lay there for a moment, her chest heaving, her body refusing to respond to her commands. The guards expected her to stay down. The mathematics said she should be unconscious by now. Every calculation, every model, every prediction pointed to the same conclusion. Her body had nothing left to give. Katie put her hands on the ground and pushed herself up. Her arms trembled so badly she could barely support her own weight. She collapsed again, and again, and again. Then she started to crawl. She crawled forward, one hand in front of the other, dragging her body across the rough stone. The sharp rocks cut into her palms and knees. Blood mixed with dust and left a trail behind her. Every movement was agony. Every breath was a victory. She crawled for 600 meters before her arms finally failed. She lay face down on the path. Less than 100 meters from the depot, her body completely spent. The guards stood over her, shock sticks ready, waiting for her to try again. The other prisoners watched from their assigned positions, silent, frozen, unable to look away. Juran recorded everything from his observation post. He measured her heart rate, her blood oxygen, her neural activity. The data showed a body that had pushed itself beyond every known limit. By every metric he understood, Katie Brennan should have been dead several times over during the past 3 days. He felt something he could not identify. It took him several minutes to recognize it as fear. The sun began to set behind the mountains on the horizon. The temperature started to drop toward freezing. Katie lay motionless on the path, her brown eyes still open, still watching, still refusing to close, even when everything else had failed. She had not broken. Karth watched from his office window. He had seen prisoners die. He had seen prisoners beg. He had seen prisoners give up everything they believed in to make the pain stop. He had never seen anyone crawl 600 meters after their body had already failed. The warden turned away from the window and said nothing. For the first time in 60 cycles, he did not know what to do next. The rescue fleet arrived on day 40-9. They came out of hyperspace like a storm breaking over the horizon. 12 warships and 6 transport vessels, more firepower than the Valkyrie had ever seen humans deploy for a single operation. The lead ship was the Resolute, a heavy cruiser that had been rerouted from its patrol assignment 3 weeks earlier. When a faint distress signal reached human space, that signal had come from VETH-7. Katie had built it from salvaged components. Mining equipment had electronic parts that could be repurposed with enough creativity and desperation. She had worked on it during the brief rest periods, hiding the pieces in her clothing, assembling them in the darkness of the barracks while the other prisoners kept watch. The Valkyrie had not detected the signal, because their models said a human in her condition could not possibly have the energy or coordination for such a project. Their models had been wrong about many things concerning Katie Brennan. Alarms screamed across the camp as the human fleet entered orbit. Defense batteries activated automatically, targeting the incoming ships with weapons designed to destroy vessels twice their size. But the humans had prepared for this. They had studied Velthari defensive systems for years, looking for weaknesses, finding them, and keeping that knowledge secret until the right moment. The first wave of missiles took out the orbital defense platforms in under 3 minutes. On the surface, Korath watched the situation deteriorate with something approaching disbelief. He had calculated the possibility of a human rescue attempt and determined it to be less than 0.3%. The resources required were too great. The political cost was too high. The humans should have written off the Horizon's Edge crew as acceptable losses. He had not calculated for what humans would sacrifice for each other. Commander Nathan Cole led the ground assault personally. He had spent the past 49 days in confinement, unable to help his people, unable to do anything except wait and hope. When the Resolute dropped into orbit and the rescue mission became real, he demanded a place on the first shuttle down. No one tried to stop him. The landing zone was hot. Velthari ground forces put up fierce resistance, their weapons cutting through the thin atmosphere with deadly accuracy. Human soldiers fell. Human blood stained the gray rocks of Veth 7, but more humans kept coming. Nathan moved through the camp with a squad of Marines at his back. They cleared building after building, freeing prisoners, neutralizing guards. The Velthari fought with their usual precision, each shot calculated for maximum effectiveness. The humans fought with something else, something the Velthari could not measure. They found Katie in the medical ward. After her collapse on day 3 of the punishment, the guards had carried her inside and left her there to die or recover on her own. The Velthari did not waste resources treating prisoners who were already broken. Katie was not broken. She was unconscious, her body damaged in dozens of ways that the medical scanners cataloged with cold efficiency. 3 broken ribs, now 4. Fractured bones in both hands. Internal bleeding. Organ damage. Severe dehydration. Malnutrition. Toxin buildup. Nathan did not speak when he found her. He simply lifted her from the medical bed and carried her to the extraction shuttle. The same way she had carried Derek Vasquez through the tunnels. The same way humans had carried each other since the beginning of their species. Korath survived the attack. His personal guards escorted him to a bunker beneath the administration building, where he waited out the assault in cold silence. When human forces breached the bunker 3 hours later, he surrendered without resistance. There was no point in fighting. The mathematics of the situation had become clear. Juran also survived. He was found in his observation post, still recording data, still trying to understand what he was witnessing. The human soldiers who captured him expected anger or defiance. Instead, they found a Velthari analyst who looked at them with something like wonder. "How do you do it?" Juran asked as they led him away. "How you keep going when the numbers say you should stop?" None of them had an answer. None of them had ever thought to ask the question. The extraction took 4 hours. Every surviving human prisoner was loaded onto transport ships and carried to safety. The Velthari camp was left empty, its purpose destroyed along with its mathematical certainty. In the months that followed, Juran completed his report on the incident. He worked on it obsessively, the same way he had studied Katie Brennan. He analyzed every data point, every observation, every moment that had defied his predictions. The final document ran to 300 pages and was submitted to the Velthari High Council as a priority intelligence assessment. The title was simple: On the Unmeasured Variable and Its Implications for Dominion Strategy. The conclusion spread through Velthari military academies like a virus. Commanders who had dismissed humans as a minor species began requesting additional intelligence. Analysts who had trusted their calculations for decades started questioning their fundamental assumptions. The final paragraph of Juran's report became the most quoted text in Velthari strategic studies. Human resilience cannot be calculated through biological metrics alone. They possess an additional factor, observable but not quantifiable, that manifests under conditions of extreme duress. This factor appears to be contagious, spreading through social bonds in ways that amplify collective resistance beyond the sum of individual capabilities. Recommendation: reclassify humanity from threat level 2 to threat level 9. Addendum: do not capture them. Do not test them. Do not give them a reason to show you what they are capable of. We measured her strength wrong. I suspect we have measured all of them wrong. The Velthari Dominion withdrew from human-occupied space the following year. Their official explanation cited strategic reallocation of resources. Everyone knew the truth. Katie Brennan spent 4 months in a medical facility on Earth. She received commendations she never requested, and visits from the 36 people she had helped keep alive. Reporters came from across human space, asking for interviews, wanting to hear the story of the woman who had broken an empire's faith in mathematics. She turned most of them away. She had never wanted to be a symbol. She had only wanted to survive and help others survive along with her. One reporter managed to ask her a single question before her doctors intervened. How did you do it? How did you keep going when everything said you should stop? Katie looked at him with those steady brown eyes that had watched everything without flinching. I just decided not to stop, she said. That is all. I decided, and then I did not stop deciding. The Velthari never forgot her. Across the galaxy, other species heard the stories and began to understand something important about humanity. They were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced dot, but they had something that could not be measured. Something that made them keep crawling when their legs failed. Something that made them carry each other through darkness. Something that turned ordinary people into legends. They called her the unmeasured variable. She called herself Katie, and she never stopped.